I will call the Government Oversight Committee meeting December 4th, 2024 to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is a motion to adopt the agenda.
Romano adopts the agenda.
I have a motion by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Wallace to adopt the agenda. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, let's vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next is public participation. This is the first of two of our public hearings. Anyone wishing to speak on agenda items for a maximum of 3 minutes may do so now. There'll be a second public participation at the end of this meeting. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Once, twice, gone. Next is appointment interviews. We have friend of the court, advisory committee, executive appointment with board concurrence, 2 vacancies, 3 years term to expire on December 31st, 2027. There are 2 names available, Suzan Fischer and Terrance Brailsford. Motion to refer to, would you?
Chair, I make a motion for the executive appointment with board concurrence to appoint Suzan Fischer and Terrance Brailsford and move this to full board.
Support Zinner.
I have a motion by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Zinner. Brian, would you like to speak?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have 2 vacancies right now on our Citizen Advisory Board. It's an 8-member board. It looks over all of the grievances that are received against the front of the court operations or employees. They're an impartial body. It is composed of a mental health professional, a representative from the Sheriff's Department, a custodial parent, non-custodial parent, 2 members at large, and also an attorney. Mr. Brailsford is here today. He has served 1 term. They are 3-year terms. He's willing to serve again. He is a lifelong member of the Army and service member. We're very happy to have him on the committee, and we're very happy to have him back. Ms. Fisher is our mental health professional. Unfortunately, she had patients this afternoon. She did contact me prior and is asking to be reappointed and apologizes for not being able to be here today.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your service, sir. Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Macomb County Zoological Authority, executive appointment with board concurrence, 5 vacancies, 3-year terms to expire on December 31st, 2027. Names are James Sawyer, Lauren Brosch, Marilyn Lane, Andrew McKinnon, Stacy Ziarko. Motion to refer to full board.
So move, Perna.
Support Lucido.
I have a motion by Commissioner Perna, supported by Commissioner Lucido. Any discussion on the appointments? Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item is Building Authority Commission, Board Chair appointment with Board concurrence, 7 vacancy, 2-year terms to expire on December 31st, 2026. The appointments are for Arnold, Hassig, John Johnson, Treasurer Larry Rocca, Peter Thomas, Rodney Tolbert, Ronald Trombly, and Derek Wilczynski.
Motion to recommend to full board. Support Lucido.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gratz, supported by Commissioner Lucido. Seeing no speakers, please vote and bless you.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is department recommendations. Contract, Ulliance Employees Assistant Program Services, active employees for $68,000, $38,000 for retiree program, My Senior Coach, $106,000. Motion to refer to full board.
Motion to refer to full board.
I have a motion from Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Wallace. Carolyn, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. I have in front of you today our Employee Assistance Program here in louder. I have in front of you today the Employee Assistance Program contract with Ulliance. We are currently using Ulliance. Ulliance has been our provider for our Employee Assistance Program now for, I believe, 8 years. We did go through the RFP process, did our vendor interviews, and determined at the end that Ulliance was still the best qualified vendor to provide those services for us. So you have an active population that uses that service, as well as our retirees are offered the My Senior Coach program.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Carlin.
Hi.
It mentions here that the funding is available, and then there's some code. For our purposes, is that contract services? It says fiscal year 2025 SC 0269 and CC 063. I would assume that because it's a contract, it would be in contract services for our purposes, but I just wanted to check. Yep, Steve.
Steve says contract services.
Got it. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further speakers, please vote.
Yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item is fiscal year 2025 budget amendment, Sheriff's Department Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council Labor Agreement for $575,800. Motion to refer to full board.
Motion to refer items 6B and 6C to full board, if I may, Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Zinner. Who's speaking on this one?
Here he comes.
Here he comes. I thought that's why you guys dragged Liz here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the budget amendment before you reflects the impact of the settlement with the Fraternal Order of Police Deputies and Dispatchers Union for fiscal 2025, and it represents the cost of the additional 2% in base wage over what we built into the 2025 budget. So we built a 3% across the board increase into the 25 budget. The settlement proposed before you today is a 5% increase for 2025. The cost of this proposal across both groups, the dispatchers and the deputies, is $575,800. And that's split between two funds, the general fund and the dispatch fund. And the net effect of this is a utilization of fund balance of $295,000 in the general fund for this particular group, net of any chargebacks to the local units. So we charge out about 41% of our deputies to local units and about 60% of our dispatchers to local units.
Thank you. Seeing no speakers, the motion is to approve B and C. Oh, now there is. Mr. Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving pretty quick today. Sorry to slow you up. I have a question on the timeline when it comes to when contract negotiations begin, when our budget is recommended, when the local communities have their budget hearings and approval, and then we get to this day. Because obviously we were under the understanding that it would be 3% and we budgeted as such. And I'm guessing that the locals did as well because they were also under the assumption of the 3%. So I'm wondering, in terms of us and our locals, because I do have two communities that contract with us, what that timeline looks like in terms of preparation, I guess, in case there are any changes or things like that. Because, you know, we've gone this whole budget cycle assuming a 3%. And now all of a sudden it's mid-December and it's 5%. And we just got dragged through the mud as a board for putting 5 million aside. And now we're already being asked for $500,000 and it's not even fiscal year 25 yet. So I guess I'm curious as to how that timeline goes.
I mean, Carlin can speak to when we started. I mean, as it relates to the local units, you know, they have different fiscal years. A lot of the townships have March year ends.
Right.
Some have June. I believe we had some communication from Deputy Executive McKinnon. We have those escalators built into the contract. So again, these increased costs will be passed along to the locals.
Right.
We do start contract negotiations sometime previous to when we put the budget together. But remember, we start putting budgets together in
Months
March
before we see it, right.
ourselves.
Right.
And so there's always this balance of when we get to this point versus when we actually are preparing the budget.
Got it. Okay. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of follow up what Commissioner Kraft is saying about the locals. My community has the largest agreement with the county in regards to these specific items. They were not aware. I know this board just passed these contracts last month. They're not happy in the sense that, you know, we've got a working relationship with these locals and they're under an impression that what their deal is what their deal is. And 30 days later, the deal changes. And I know I got a lot of calls in regards to this specifically just because this happened 3 years ago the exact same way and they were blindsided and they all had to write a check and they all wrote a check. But now what's happening is we're rewinding this same situation and we're playing it again for them. And on top of that, what you didn't mention was that you're also enacting the pension with these deals. So we don't even know what those numbers are going forward on top of what you're asking for out of general fund dollars plus what you're asking the locals to write a check for their shortfall. In conjunction to our budget, which we just passed, that throws that off. And I really don't have an issue with the increase with the 2%. This is the exact same deal that we did 3 years ago with these bargaining units. I think the big caveat is the pension because I was here when we got rid of the pension, and I was one that actually fought to keep the pension, and specifically because I knew what the detriment would be later on with retention to employees. And now we're seeing that. And this is a perfect example of why my suggestion was to keep the pension system open as well as open a defined contribution plan so that an employee, when they join the county, they make the decision where they want to go. We didn't do that. Now, what you're asking this board to do is approve this, and going forward, every single bargaining unit is going to ask for the exact same thing. And we haven't planned for this in any way, shape, or form. And that makes me very, very nervous because budgetarily, I mean, this week alone, this board approved, what, $10 million? We've got another 60 million on the horizon, another 50 million on the horizon. And sitting here, I don't know what to do with this decision because I feel like I've been blindsided at the 11th hour. And, you know, we talk about communication. This is something that has to be discussed. I mean, this is something that is not just today. This is going forward for years. So, you know, I just wanted to say my piece with this right now. I don't know what I want to do at this exact moment. I know we have to make a decision very, very shortly. But quite honestly, I don't even know if I can make a decision today just based on not having all the information in front of me. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of in line with Commissioners Kraft and Sabatini. I feel that this increase should have been in the budget. I know it was done late, but I just feel that it isn't right to come essentially, we would have had a deficit budget if this had been in the budget. Or we would have had to have found other monies to squeeze out. So, but I think this should have been in the budget, and I share Commissioner Sabatini's thoughts. We don't have any good numbers on what the pension plan will cost us in the future, and ongoing, and it's a big commitment. Also, has there been any alternatives to pension plans explored, like maybe signing bonuses or something like that? I don't mean like $1,000, I mean like $500,000 in a signing bonus in like an escrow fund or something that's released over so many years or something like this. Has any other possibilities been explored?
Not to my knowledge, but
The county has discussed signing bonuses in the past. We don't believe that it's actually an effective way to keep employees. So yes, you'd attract them, but you wouldn't be able to keep them. So it's a decision we've made not to provide those.
A lot of signing bonuses the person gets when they sign. I'm thinking of something more like putting in an escrow account and releasing the escrow account to the employees for, it's not a 401k, whatever the government equivalent is, over a number of years. This would not only give the employee an incentive to join the force, but also to stay with the county. Yeah, if you have a signing bonus that you get the day one, no, that's no good. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with giving the officers the 5%. It's not about that. It's the unknown pension liabilities in the future. And many companies and organizations are going away from pensions, and we finally broke away, and we're sort of regressing at this point.
Thank you very much for that, Commissioner Van Sickle, and thank you, everybody, for the diligent look at these contracts, and we greatly appreciate it. I've had conversations with Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Sabatini, Brown, and others about these issues, and Commissioner Van Sickle, you and I have had conversations. I am 100% certain that we would get all of the officers that we need and keep them for 25 years if we promise them $500,000 day one, and all they have to do is stay here for 25 years and get $500,000. If that's the proposal that we're talking about, that would be a fantastic thing for our employees. And we would be very supportive of doing what we can as long as it was fiscally responsible going forward. I think that's probably where we end up with a lot of our employees, maybe our rank and file. After they've served 25 years with us, they probably have somewhere in that $500,000 nest egg, maybe is the way to say it. So we have certainly explored a whole bunch of different avenues to attract and retain employees. This is a collective bargaining process, however, and I can tell you one of the things that we've talked about, you and I specifically, is employees in our sheriff's office are often generational. And so their grandfather had a cottage that they remember going to back when they were a kid, and their grandfather was a Macomb County Sheriff's Deputy Sergeant Lieutenant. And Commissioner Perna, I'm looking at you because I'm certain that you know 3 generations of employees. The grandfather, the father, and the child all worked for us. The grandfather and the father had pensions, and they got to sit at their cottage fishing, and they loved that. They have great memories of that, and they planned their entire life to do that. And then we came and unfortunately closed that system to them a number of years ago. Now we have, through incredibly diligent work on behalf of this board and the Retirement Commission, created a balanced pension system that is completely funded. We are very well managed. That can change, but we are incredibly well managed. And I think, if I'm letting the cat out of the bag a little bit at a public meeting, but our bond rating is going up ever so slightly. There's a shade, Steve understands what this is, but we're like AA1 neutral. We're gonna be,
stable, yeah.
okay, stable. We're gonna be AA1 positive as of what? When does?
Yesterday.
Okay, they brought the sword down on our shoulders and blessed us yesterday. So we've got a continually improving picture of our finances. We would not do anything to put that in jeopardy, I can guarantee you that. We do have to run a actuarial analysis when we look at bringing any sort of pension benefit back, or even an increase in the pension benefit that we currently offer to our employees. So we've done all of the due diligence. We are very confident in our financial position in order to continue to provide this benefit. Commissioner Sabatini, you're 1,000% correct, and I think we touched on that. Every organization in this county is going to come to us saying, We also want a pension. We have a plan for that as well, and we continue to have those discussions. So we really greatly appreciate the probing questions, but we do believe that this is a very prudent move for us. And the one thing that I have not said at all is we want to attract and retain we don't just want to attract and retain. We want to attract and retain the best, most competent, most nimble public safety employees we have, because it's one of the absolute most important jobs that we have in this county. And so that is why we've brought this forward, and I hope I'm not standing on anybody's toes, but greatly appreciate the thoughts and the questions and the time. Thank you.
With all due respect to your actuarials, it's all just a paper calculation. There's no guarantees, there's no contracts. It's all just, we suspect or we estimate that this will happen in the future.
Commissioner Van Sickle, I call it make-believe. So I completely agree with you. Now, actuaries will tell me that I'm an idiot, and I probably am because they make way more money than I do. But they certainly have got something down where they've figured it out. And yeah, it's a guesstimate. We won't know what's going to happen in 30 years.
I admit or agree that their estimates or guesses are accurate many times.
They're never accurate. They're close maybe, but they're never on point.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner, very much.
They're in the right ballpark many times. But as Commissioner Sabatini said, this may also set a precedent for all the other bargaining units. And that's worrisome budget-wise. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I just want to comment on one thing. You two may agree that the actuarial reports are guesstimates in the world we live in. This is what I deal with at the retirement boards to assure our estimates are as best as humanly possible. And I've been doing this for 4 years. We have a clause in our investment policy that if one of the firms we contract with doesn't meet our minimum requirement is 7% annual positive return, we look at booting them. So we're looking for the best of the best all the time. We can talk about any subject we want here, but guessing in the retirement board is not something that I'm going to accept. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I completely agree with Commissioner Kraft and Commissioner Sabatini. A couple questions. Why wasn't this brought to us before? Even if you didn't have numbers, just to say, hey, this is where we are right now. We are in negotiations, so it could go up, knowing that it would go up. I'm just wondering, where is the disconnect and why is it not brought to us?
I think I'll speak to that a bit. So yes, I think Steve made a good point that those budget conversations start much before we started in negotiations. When I get up to talk about the actual contract ratifications, I can give you a little bit of timeline on that. We did start having some initial conversations with our unions probably in about back in June. It really wasn't until November that we started talking some real proposals, which at that point we were pretty far in the process on that. I don't know specifically the time frame of all of those budget processes, but that November date, because of the heavy topic that we've got, we've been talking about it for months, trying to prepare a proposal that we thought would be successful.
Yeah, I get that. I think that my thing is, if you're in negotiations and you know we're coming up on budget, just even if it's, to the side, hey, this is what's going on. We're talking, talk to us too. That's all I'm saying, because when we are saying no to so many things, and then after budget we see you and it's like, hey, this is what's going on. Just a little heads up would have been great, because now we're all looking at each other like, now what? And it puts us again in a difficult situation, which, I think that we are used to, but as a group need to come up with a final decision in a short time. And then as far as the cities and townships, are they aware of this, or are you telling us before them?
I haven't reached out to them yet. I don't know, Liz, if Jason,
I can tell you, I
Yeah.
know of 5 townships that are aware of this because they've called me, Joe, Phil, and probably Don, and Don.
Right.
So that
Right.
it was shocking to me how many of the townships are monitoring our agendas.
Right, and that's my thing. They're monitoring our agenda. They're not being spoken to, just like we are not. And I don't think that it's fair for us to say, yes, this is happening. Now you pay for it. You know what I mean? Because if someone said, Antoinette, I made a decision, you pay for it, and it's for your best benefit. It may be for my best benefit. However, I didn't budget for this. So now I'm putting to the side other projects that I promised my community. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I believe I do understand Commissioner Wallace, and I think the communication can always be improved. One of the areas that I think is important to consider is through the collective bargaining process, there is supposed to be confidentiality at that table to just those folks who are sitting at that table. And so there is an expectation that we are keeping that close to the vest. We also don't bring anything to this board because there's every possibility, and I see some of our union, one of our union heads here, there is the possibility that they could vote that down. And you saw that not too long ago at the Boeing collective bargaining table, where they kept shooting down collective bargaining agreements. I got to tell you, that's one of the things, and I'm sorry that I'm probably speaking more than I need to, but it's one of the things that kind of keeps me up at night is, have we done enough? Did we do enough? One of the things that Carlin may share, and I'm probably spoiling the surprise, is that the FOP contract was overwhelmingly ratified, the one that we're considering at this point, 207 to 10. So we've created these incredibly open, trusting relationships with our collective bargaining units. We intend to continue to work on that with this Board of Commissioners. We're making progress, as I've mentioned before, and we will continue to try to improve communication. I think I did mention sort of out of school a couple of times to different commissioners, we anticipate that this is what it's going to look like. But of course, I didn't do that to the whole board, and I wouldn't do that in writing because it's not an appropriate thing to do through the collective bargaining process. Yeah.
I completely agree, and that's why I mentioned kind of to the side.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the raise. I think that it is well deserved. My problem is, again, I feel like the community should at least know, instead of us saying, yes, this is happening, you pay for it now. I have a big problem with that because I know the city of Mount Clemens would absolutely have to put some projects aside that was promised to our community. And if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. But for me to say it instead of the city commission saying it is two different things.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, Commander Abro negotiates those agreements from my understanding. I'll have a personal conversation with him about making sure that the locals are incredibly aware of when we're renegotiating. Because I'll tell you, frequently, the sheriff's office has done better than our other groups historically.
Yeah.
Which is okay. And I think that's something to make sure that we're letting them know. And then we're also giving reasonable raises at this point, thanks to this board and the financial condition that we're in. So
Yeah.
I think that's important for us to make sure Commander Abro is being really, really clear on at those conversations. So I'll get back with him.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. This board has fought for, and we're part of at least attaining the raises for the deputies and for others, for Macomb County. And so we wanted those, and they got them, and we got some too, so I'm not complaining about that. But this situation was unacceptable.
3:29 p.m.
In that the finance chair and the vice finance chair were not brought in on this. Now, that may not be the way things are done, but that should have been done. And now it's going to roll down the hill to the whole county, and I think it's unacceptable.
Well, Commissioner, you can certainly ask questions of our department heads, but to tell them that the work that they're doing is unacceptable is not something that I'm okay with. I can tell you that I had a direct conversation with Commissioners Sabatini and Kraft about what I anticipated the raises to be and what I anticipated was going to come with the pension coming back. So your critique while it's appreciated, I guess, it is not unacceptable for our department heads. And I would appreciate questions coming and not a comment on the work that they're doing.
Well, when it affects our citizens and the people who are in charge of those citizens at other levels, this should be acknowledged as it has been.
Yes, it has been,
We are
correct.
the people who work with these people. They expect us to stand up for them.
And to
So-
protect them, and to make sure that we're getting the best and brightest of the public safety employees that we can recruit in this county. And you would ask that we have communication with the board, which we have done. So it is not unacceptable. It has been done exactly what you've asked for.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon, for explaining that.
Point of order, Chair, if I may speak briefly here. Andy, what you just said is correct, but I want to be clear on what you said. That meeting happened Friday morning here at a budget meeting with myself, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Haw, Commissioner Brown was there. And that discussion was confidential.
Yes,
And you said that was not to leave that room.
yes.
So just to be fair, that was on Friday morning, and we had budget amendments on Monday.
That was several Fridays ago, Commissioner. I agree with you, 2 or 3. I just
So,
can't
I mean,
remember.
to say that we were notified weeks or prior, it was at the 11th hour.
We had a conversation about it, which is what Commissioner Zinner was asking us to do.
But I just want to be clear.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner
Thank you, Chair.
Romano. Thank you, Commissioner Zinner. Yep, you flicked off and on here 4 times, so go
I
ahead.
click on, I can't even see it. I'm gonna do it again.
You're on.
All right.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. So now here we have the problem. It's like a double-edged sword. And I'm in complete agreement. Let's get the raises where they should. But I'm going to give you a little short story, and then we'll go from there. I had the occasion last night, we promoted our chief of police from chief of police to a second city manager. He's been chief of police for 7 years. Prior to that, he's been with the department for 25 years, homegrown boy, been around for 35 years, all his life in Sterling Heights. When I was back on council, we originally started, and we had a pension plan for the officers. They were fighting at the door to get in to join Sterling Heights. They all were interested in it. Lo and behold, for whatever reason, we discontinued the pension plan. And the newer officers that came from us, from other departments, some of them left based on just that, the pension plan. The idea that we're talking about, it came as a surprise. Okay, I think I've said this to every one of you at one time or another. I don't give surprises. I don't like surprises. It's happened. We have to deal with it. Do you want to continue this? We can do all day long. You can either vote for it yes, or you can vote for it no. It's upsetting our budget that we just got, in fact, we haven't even been accepted yet. But here it is, guys. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to keep the best of the best? Do you want, we've always talked about we can't retain our law enforcement. Why? Because we're not paying them. Well, let's give them something that we can attract better than what we have. And I'm sure we have some great people, but even better than that. So here we're at the wall, so to speak. We can accept this today, go forward, or make your vote no and go backward. You do what you want to do. Thank you, Chair. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucido.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, so I know you gave us like a summary in here of what like the financial impact would be to the board. And I realized that maybe like if it was just like a raise that we were changing in these contracts, that would be completely fine. But I was wondering if there was any way before voting on this, if we could table this till next month, and if we could maybe get actually a copy of the contracts to review. No, as you are changing the whole retirement system and the way it's done. Like, it's not like it's just a raise and everything else in the contract, so I can go look up the old contract and read it and be like, oh, well, it's a 3% raise, whatever those numbers are gonna change. I understand that. Completely support the raises, but you're changing a lot in this contract and we don't even have a copy of it. And so I was just wondering if there was any way that maybe we could get an actual copy of these contracts before moving forward and voting on them.
The labor contracts.
The TAs.
Yeah.
The TAs are available in our office. You're welcome to come down and review those, yes.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable disseminating them because it hasn't been ratified by the group yet, but yes,
Okay.
they're available.
All right, thank you.
if I heard correctly, there's two attributes that are changing. We're reinstating the retirement program and adding 2% to the previously agreed upon 3%. Is that correct?
Those would be the two most significant changes, yes.
So
Five-
are there
the 5%
other
increase.
attributes that are changing as well?
Throughout negotiations, we have things that we're negotiating from time to time, but not anything that's a significant. A lot of it's operational, cleaning up language, but the whole packet is available in our office for review.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Well, providing that information would be very helpful to the board. And quite frankly, it probably should have been provided with, this is a big ask. And you figure there's going to be questions. And if you're trying to sell something that, by the way, I support the pension. We need our people that are on the street every day, putting their lives at risk and jeopardizing their whole family's situation if they should get injured. At risk. They are the most valuable people putting their lives on the line for the county every day. They're in a different class. They put themselves at risk higher than us as a board and people doing other clerical jobs for the county, doing good work, but certainly they're in a different class, and they definitely are deserving of a benefit like that. But having said all that, but if you want to sell it as I would do, if it would have been me, I'd have brought the numbers that show the financial impact going forward and how it's different than the prior pension benefit we had previously. Because I was a big advocate on the board because we were being crippled financially by the many agreements that this board ratified over decades. It was killing us. But we went and we cut off the pension to try to, save us, quite frankly. And, we've done remarkable things with our pension system since then, and there's pros and cons to that. But, but in this case, getting people to do the most dangerous job in the county, looking out at people with guns on the street, more violent society than we ever had before, it was necessary to bring it forward. So I support that. But if you could bring us the numbers and analysis of how it is different than the past and how looking forward with maybe throw in the actuary study, take it for what it's worth if you want, but what the impacts long-term are going to be, because I'm sure that our finance department just didn't do this in a vacuum. They didn't just say, well, let's give it to them and we'll worry about it later. I'm sure that they did a lot of hard looking at the numbers going forward to bring it forward. Well, you ought to share that with us. That would be helpful to us.
Was there not an attachment of a summary of our negotiations on the items that you received?
Not on this agenda.
There was.
Yeah, there should be.
Well, yeah, you mean the 3 lines?
Yeah, so there you go.
Okay.
So anyway, I just think there's room for improvement in communicating with the board on the contract. Now, in the old days of the old Board of Commissioners, we approved everything. We met with our finance team and they said, listen, we're going to negotiations. This is what we're looking at the table. Do you think we could swing it or not? And we made decisions. Now, that's what the executive's office, I understand that. But, maybe something in the future of communicating, as was admitted earlier, there's always room for improvement. We got other areas of our budget process we're going to be improving upon, and maybe collective bargains another area we need to try to improve upon to brief us in executive session about what you're looking at so that we can have a feel for what's going on so we aren't surprised. Because this board definitely cares about law enforcement. This board agreed to spend a lot of money to build out that jail and put in mental health protections to help those people that are on the street that have mental health issues, as well as the people that get victimized by them. And we've set money aside in our budget and took heat for doing it because we cut out some things, some wants that people wanted, to make sure that we would have that, to ensure that those would be there for us. But we had a lot of collaboration there, and I have to agree with the commissioners that think, they feel a little bit blindsided by the fact, that, this big number came along. But I will say that this doesn't mean that it's a cascading effect across all departments. We have the ability, and the administration has the ability to negotiate contracts that don't have to put that on the table for every unit, because every unit's not the same. And again, law enforcement, public safety is at the high bar. Everyone else shouldn't have the same right, in my personal opinion. So, anyway, I think it'll help
providing us some more information to give the board comfort that, you know, you didn't just do this, you know, out of the blue. You looked at the numbers and saw the forecast, the long-term cost projections for this unit would help satisfy those who are concerned about it.
Understood.
I'm
And
sure you did.
I would say, we do say in here that the TAs are available. I think, I want to say there's a packet of TAs that are available, so that's why we don't provide it here.
Listen, we're the board, this is the board, we shouldn't have to go to you to get it, you should provide it to us. You understand?
I do
We're writing the
understand.
checks, all right, so please.
I understand, but
understand you
we
want us
do
to
have
go
a
downstairs
summary.
and get it, but you know,
We're- We are,
thank you, I appreciate what you're saying, Carlin, I got great respect for you and the whole team. But I'm
Understood.
just saying, you know, information's key, and if we had some more information, it'll make this whole process go a little bit further, because it'll get what I want. I think it's necessary.
I do too.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're welcome. Second round, Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Brown asked much more eloquently than I was going to.
Really?
The question about comparison of the pensions. But I just wanted to make clear my position. I'm totally fine with raising the salaries or the pay of the sheriff's department. The part that I don't like about unions is I would like to pay for everything that we consume this year, and we're consuming our sheriff's department time and effort. I would like to pay for everything we consume this year, as opposed to consuming their time and giving them, kicking the can of paying for it down the road. So if it's contributing to 401ks or some kind of other incentives, I would just like to pay for it this year. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Second round, Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the pension, I know these pensions were closed. Are we reopening the exact same pension system, or is this a separate new pension system that would be started?
So we're reopening the same pension. No healthcare in this, just pension.
Okay, so, and
With all the same factors that are currently, that the sheriff employees
so,
currently
and I
have.
saw in the summary, so you're retroactively going back, so
No,
you're not.
no, we're going forward
Forward.
only.
Going forward only. So an individual that has not been in the pension system for the last, 10 years, something like that, close to it, would not be able to qualify for the new pension going forward?
They will.
So go ahead.
An employee that's currently in the DC program, any of the employees as of 1/1, actually it's 1/4 of 25 based on our payroll period, they will begin in the DB the same as every other member of the DB in the department. Their years in the DC will be calculated and frozen at that point, so that money is still available to them when they leave the county. Those years of service that they spent, 5, 8, whatever years they spent in the DC, will be able to be used to vest in the DB, but that money is not carried over into the DB with them.
So we're giving them their time of service, so they're vesting, they would vest sooner, correct?
They're just not going to lose their vesting.
And they're not going to lose their vesting, okay.
Right,
And
so if
they're
they,
not going to lose what they contributed to the DC plan, because that's their money that they contributed.
correct, it'll be calculated at that time.
Okay. You know, Chair, I agree with Commissioner Brown. I mean, I think, you know, we all have to make a decision, whether you're for or against this. And I've said, you know, I have no problem with the raises. I agree with that 100%. It's just the pension and what the outstanding liability is of this. Not seeing the actuarial reports, not seeing any numbers going forward. I mean, looking at a summary, it's very, very difficult for me to make a decision on this today. My suggestion, Chair, would be to move this to the next government ops meeting, or to move to the next possible meeting where we can get these reports so we can see what the total amount is that we're looking at going forward. I think that's due to us as a board. And quite honestly, we're trying to get everything done by the end of the year, and I get that. And I mean, obviously, these contracts expire, but if these contracts aren't ratified by the end of the year, the existing contract will continue, correct? Nothing will change.
We'd have to have agreements with our unions on that issue, but it will impact the effective date of the change for the DC program.
But if we're going retroactively, we can still fix that theoretically, correct?
Not really on the DC part, because that has to be calculated
Okay.
as of 1/3, because of all the gains and losses of everything that come in between there. So that would impact the effective date of when that DB program could go into place, which we'd have to then have additional conversations with our unions.
So essentially, you're looking for an answer by full board next Thursday.
Yes.
You need these. I think I've asked this question in the past. Anytime an agreement comes to us, if it's not agreed upon by the board, what would happen?
We'd have to
I don't
go,
think that's ever happened, but what would happen?
we'd have to go back to the bargaining table and renegotiate the contract.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Were you making a motion there, Commissioner?
I'll let some other commissioners speak first.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano.
Just, Mr. Spiegel, thank you, Chair. Are they able to buy back time?
Buy back time.
Just like you buy back service time? Those that have time in now want to buy into the pension plan, can they buy into that pension plan with time served already?
They can buy military time only.
Just military time. They can't do anything else with that
Yeah,
pension.
those-
I've got 15 years in, pension started, I want to use that 15 years to qualify for my 25 years and be able to pay for it in front, no?
Not sure I'm following that question,
Well, you
Commissioner.
said military time you can purchase.
Yeah, you can buy,
There's nothing in the contract that says they can buy any additional time that they've got time and grade for their pension in the future.
correct. The only thing they can do is buy military time.
Thank you, that's my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucido.
I just want to clarify something. That's part of the reason why I wanted to read the contract. But, so let's say you've served for 15 years in Macomb County. Would that 15 years go toward, like, would you only have to work 10 more then to collect the pension right now? So they would get the money that we've already invested over the last 15 years, plus the pension in 10 years. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
If I understand what you're saying, so the DC has been in place since 2016. So if you have an employee with, for example, 5 years of service, they have 5 years in the DC program, all of those calculations will be calculated at the end of, as of 1/3 of 2025. Those 5 years will be used towards their vesting in the DB of 25 and out. So if they'd have 5 years in the DC, 20 years in the DB, and they would be eligible to retire. That money that they invested and that the county matched while in the DC is set apart, and then they will move financially forward from 1/4 of 2025 until retirement.
So the DB money would go towards the retirement that we've invested, or no?
Not the DC money, no.
The DC money. So
No,
they'd still get
that's completely calculated.
They
It
would
will
still
be-
get the DC money and the pension in 20 years, if they
They
were
would get
5
the,
years.
correct, they would get their DC, whatever that money is, they would be
So
able to.
they're actually benefiting more than, let's say, someone new, because they're getting the money that's already invested plus the count for years of service towards the pension,
Well,
correct?
they may be vested already, so there's vesting in the DC. So if
Yeah.
an employee's vested, then they get that vesting amount.
Yeah.
It's 5 years at 100% and down from there. But a new employee would be a new employee, so it wouldn't, they'd be
Right.
getting everything in the DB program.
Okay. But
So
I
this
mean,
is
I'm just,
really-
I'm just wondering, like, if like their employee, let's say, was hired in 15, so they were already in the pension system, so they didn't invest that money. They're actually gonna end up with less money than the people that were, because now if you were hired in 16, when you started doing this system, you would get that money plus you'd get the pension then, correct?
They've been in the DB the entire time.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that they will fare better because they never had a disruption of the DC.
Right.
They're going to, they won't be harmed by that. Actually, it's one of the things that we were saying is pretty remarkable about the negotiations, the contract ratification on the member side, is that we have actually more DC employees than DB now over at the sheriff department, and those contracts ratified overwhelmingly. which means our DB people were supporting it as well.
All right. All right, so I mean, I guess at this point, like, I don't feel comfortable with approving this today. By next Thursday, I may, so if we move towards full board, like, I'm fine. I would like to read the contract. I will make sure I go down there and get it, because obviously we're not gonna be provided with the contracts to review our, so I will, definitely make sure that take the time to do
I
that,
would
but.
assume that we're not going to be provided with the
Well,
contract.
she said I had to go down there and get it. That's what
No,
I'm saying. I'll
I-
go down there and I'll
Real
get the
quick.
copy of the contract.
And I think that's a very good point, Commissioner, and probably one of those things where it's a really good example of communication can always be improved. I am certain that what Carlin is talking about is if any one of these commissioners wants to see the TAs, we would be happy to make them available to you and
Yeah,
bring
she said
them
I
to
could come
you.
down and get a copy of
We
it.
can, and Commissioner Brown said you can bring them up here. We can absolutely, it's a couple of floors. We're
Okay,
very
so
happy to
yeah,
bring
like
them
I
up.
said, so I mean, I can come after this meeting and pick it up, or if you want to send it up here, I can pick it up tomorrow. It's up to you guys. I don't care. But I'm gonna just tell you, like, I mean, I'll send this to full board, but without the contract, I'm not gonna approve it. Thank you.
Was that the end? Oh, thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All my colleagues are going after the pension side of things, so I'm going to loop in the percentage increase side of things. Because for months now, I think we've all been under the understanding that 3% raises were kind of the benchmark. That was going to be across the board. I mean, we've known that for a while now. And these two contracts sit at 5%. So I guess my question for Steve is, what if we didn't have the other 2%? Or what if the locals don't have that other 2%? Does the service just stop? So like if I have New Haven and Lennox. So let's
Right.
say New Haven says, well, I can't come up with that 2%. Those deputies get pulled on January 1. Or if we can't find the 2% in our budget, those officers, those deputies just don't show up for
I would
work
say,
on January 1.
Commissioner, that the locals are contractually bound to absorb these increases.
So what about
And if they
us?
say no, if they can't afford it, I suppose they have the opportunity to say, well, we have one less deputy on the road. I'm not saying that would happen by any stretch of the imagination, but they're contractually bound to absorb these, increases.
So if they, okay,
And if they can't, then they might have to,
sure, they're contractually
just like
bound.
we do, it's,
Right.
move pieces around in the budget.
But I'm just to be, I don't know, devil's advocate, I guess, is if we couldn't find that 2% in our budget and we had all kind of discussed the 3% across the board, that the raises that everybody was going to get in the county, and all of a sudden here's this extra 2% hanging out there. What if we couldn't pay for that? After you've negotiated and said, 5%'s okay, you've come to this agreement. But what if the money's not there? What if we didn't have funds for that extra 2%? Because we had set on 3%.
Not sure I'm following your question. So we have a cost here of 400,000.
Right.
And
Which
that's,
is
we
coming,
have,
which is
coming
on
from
top of,
balance.
which is on top of what we've already budgeted.
Correct, right.
That's what I'm saying. We've already budgeted X amount. Like in my
Right.
house, if I go over on expenses, they're taking my house. If I can't pay my car payment, they're taking my car. If we're going over what we've budgeted for, we would have to find it somewhere else, correct?
Well, we're taking this out of the bank, basically, in your example. We're taking it from savings.
Yeah. So it's a good thing we have that. But if we didn't have that, this is my point. If we didn't have that savings, or if we couldn't find those funds for that extra 2% that we had planned for, then what would happen?
Yeah, we'd have to find it in some other area of the budget.
So we'd have to cut something.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear the willingness to send the information out for those who want it. I suggest that we send this to the Committee, Justice and Public Safety Committee on Wednesday, not at their full board meeting. So we've got family and other things here coming in, and we don't want to get involved in what could be a prolonged discussion about the information that we're going to receive to help give us a traditional background, like the financial projections, the cost estimates, the answer to the question you've heard here, that you'll provide to the board to send to that committee on Wednesday for us to review and the board can then judge based on the new information that they have to make a decision that, so that's what I would suggest that we do. I definitely, so anyway, that's my suggestion to the board and to the chairman. So, thank you,
This
Mr. Chairman.
week.
Commissioner Lucido on the third round.
Yeah, I would make that, I would support that motion to move it to next Wednesday's Records and Public Safety meeting.
Well, before we move to a motion, the only person that hasn't spoken on this subject yet is me.
Okay.
So then I will accept that we have to,
I didn't make a motion.
I was
that's
gonna say,
Commissioner-
he didn't make a motion yet.
Do we have to clear the first motion?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Chair, just before you speak, I wouldn't even be opposed to adding it to Finance Committee on Tuesday. I think there's space on that committee.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
So whatever works
Finance
best.
would be better then, okay.
Whatever would be best. I don't know what the agendas look like for both committees next week, but
I'm fine, either day.
Either way.
I mean, difference to me.
All right,
I would-
finance, okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, do you
turn,
still
Harold.
wish to speak on the fourth round? Your name's up.
Oh, no, I already put them, sorry.
Okay. At the end of our budgetary process, I use the term continuous improvement. I've heard about 19 suggestions here for continuous improvement. We need to start that process immediately between our team and your team. We've got items on our agenda where we're amending the 2024-2025 budget where, other than the notification the chair has received, we didn't know if there was vetoes in it or not vetoes in it. So I knew this was going to be controversial. Had it not been for Joe, I thought I was on the agenda with this tomorrow. Turns out it's today. We've got to put a stop to this. We know you're doing your job. That's not the issue here. We know you're doing your job. We know the exec's office is doing their, everybody's doing their job. And yet there's nobody sitting here happy. There's nobody sitting here feeling confident. There's nobody sitting here saying, we can do this. And I appreciate the union sitting back there. They ratified this in good faith. They thought it was going to be implemented today or at full board. It's not going to happen because the process is broke. I'm sure you guys know it and we know it. So we need to start before we get into, and I believe Joe used the term, $10 million of amendments to the 2025 budget coming up in the next week and a half on how we're going to move forward. And I'm telling you right now, if I read in the paper, we're tabling this because we don't support public safety, I'm the one that's going to be doing all the talking at the next meeting. That's what happened last time, and that was not the reason. The following week, we approved $79 million in contracts for outside services for the sheriff's department. The following week. I know Joe got the phone call from Macomb Township. I don't particularly like hearing those phone calls from Macomb Township, but I obviously don't have a choice based on who's sitting there. And they were upset, very much upset. I talked to Andrew. He was going to talk to the supervisor and possibly the clerk out there, but we cannot continue as a county doing this. And Andrew said it. If you look at our constituents, 77% of the national said government's going in the wrong way. I don't believe Macomb County's going that way. And you're not going to let it go that way. I know Mark supports us getting together as a group and figure out how we have to do things. I didn't know it was going to come this rapidly. So with that, I think I have a motion to table this to when?
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee.
Yeah, I would make the motion to table items B through D to next Wednesday's finance.
First, we have to vote on the
Records.
first motion.
I'm going to withdraw that
Wednesdays.
motion if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Who was the second?
Oh, no, then for records and public safety, yes. Records and public safety. Records and public safety.
Motion has been drawn to refer to full board.
All right, yeah, I'll make the motion to move these items B through E to the records and public safety meeting of December 11th.
I have a motion. Support. A support by Commissioner Sabatini. No discussion on a motion. The table is in order. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you coming back.
And that information.
And get the information, please, in advance.
Yeah. May I just take my item actually never came up. I'm the op items. May I just take a couple minutes?
Which one?
Well, I'm technically, I think, C and E.
They both got tabled.
Yeah, can I just speak to give you some basic information
Nope,
before you review
can
those?
Speak to Wednesday, or whenever we tabled it to.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item is proclamation, a proclamation designating December 2024 as Orthopedic Medicine Month by James Perna. Motion to refer to full board.
Motion to refer to full board?
Support Van Sickle.
Was that Commissioner Grott
Yes.
and Commissioner Van Sickle? Commissioner Perna, you want to speak to it or not?
I don't believe that's mine.
Well, it's your name there.
You going to osteopathic services? No, I'm not, so maybe we shouldn't have the proclamation.
Well, let's just follow suit for the whole meeting. Whose proclamation is this?
To my knowledge, it was Commissioner Perna's, but I can verify that.
I guess we'll have to.
Do you want to refer to full board or not?
Refer to full board, please.
Okay, I have a motion and support. Any this other discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
I'm sorry, Adrian. What was that?
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item is our second of two public hearings. This one is for any county business on any issue for a maximum of 3 minutes. Anyone from the public wish to be? Well, welcome back.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Carlin Semlo from the Human Resources Department. I do want to take a couple minutes just to share with you some information before you get that information from our office regarding the ratification of these two contracts. Coming before you at the next meeting that I'll be at then will be our two contracts covering our deputies, our dispatchers, and our command officers. That is making up more than half of the union membership over there at the Sheriff Department. Both of those contracts, we've been negotiating with those Sheriff Department for a bit. Wanted to explain to you that that has been, bringing back the DB has been a conversation for a long time with our groups. Obviously, that's very important. And if you know law enforcement, you know that that is the culture of law enforcement is a DB program. And so that is a conversation that has continued pretty much since that program was bargained out back in 2016. And so we had an agreement in 2022 with one of our bargaining units to explore the concept of opening up the DB again. We didn't even know if we could do it, so there was a lot of work to be done at that point to even see if it was feasible. Once we found out that it was feasible, we decided that the next question was, can we do it? And do we really want to do that? And so we've been spending the last couple of years working through those steps and taking that very methodically. Did meet back in June with our bargaining units, as I said, having some initial discussions to find out what are their priorities. We learned at that time that DB was a priority for our bargaining units. One of our units told us that we were they were expecting about 50 of their employees to walk out and go to other agencies if they didn't get that DB program. Another one also gave us a statistic, I don't remember the number, but it said that is their number one priority was the DB. And so when you talk about a culture that is ingrained in the DB being essential to them, it was something we had to do. And so since 2022, we have been unable to fill positions over at the Sheriff Department. We've had a turnover rate that's been, back in 2022, our turnover rate was 12.8% based on our calculations. You guys know that story from other things. Since we've been having negotiations, we've seen that number drastically decrease in our office, which is a really good thing. We do believe that those employees that have threatened to leave us are sticking around and waiting for this DB to come back. We're losing almost half as many as people as we hire coming in. Also, our applicant pool has been way down. And so we are competing with all of our other surrounding communities for these same employees. As you guys know, people don't really want to go into law enforcement anymore. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Their safety, their well-being, there's no flexibility, no work-life balance. So there's about 1,800 police officer vacancies in Michigan right now. We are all competing for the same employees. And so when we look at our surrounding communities, they still have the DB, and those are the people we're losing our officers to. Since 2020,
Carla, you have 30 seconds.
got it.
Your
I got it.
minute's over.
We have lost 37 deputies alone in the last 7 years. We have them going to Sterling Heights, which has a DB. We have them going to Warren that has a DB, Clinton Township that still has a DB, also to St. Clair Shores, which still has a DB. You get my point. We're losing our deputies to other agencies. And so for us, yes, we have to make this move. We want to be the best. We want to be the brightest. Somebody made that comment, and I think that is who the sheriff department desires to be. And so while I hear you and I understand that the points that you've made, we do believe this is a must for Macomb County to step in this direction for our law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard?
This is just fun for me now to defer to you, Commissioner excuse me. Very quickly, I agree completely with the sentiment that we have to continue to improve communication, as I've talked about earlier, and I do appreciate that we are improving communication on a regular basis. I will say that several questions did come from commissioners, and we did address those, I believe, in a timely manner. Commissioner Kraft, I'm speaking specifically to something that you and I went back and forth on during Thanksgiving week, and we got it to you. I think it was timely. And so while the Human Resources Department does send a summary, and they do talk about the idea that there is other language there that we'd be happy to share and converse with you on, please reach out to us as well. We're here. We're ready, we're available, and we answer the questions timely as far as I am aware. So we would, when that comes and you do have those questions, these are very comprehensive, very deep questions that you're asking Commissioner Lucido. And I'll touch real quickly on the collective bargaining agreements are, 100, 125 pages. To go through and touch all those little grammatical changes or language changes takes a significant amount of time. But looking at the actual language will help tremendously, I think. So it won't be like the full contracts updated, but looking at the language, and it won't be as complex, I think, as it may seem while we talk about it here more ethereally, because it's just sort of putting people back in the system that we already have. So we can go through that very efficiently, I think, with you, and we're very happy to do that. So if anybody has questions about bargaining, about the process, about any of that, please send them to me. I'll get with our finance and HR department, and we're very happy to have those conversations with everybody. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Should I wait for the rest of the 3 minutes? You want me to keep
No,
talking?
you're pushing it.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda is commissioners' comments. Seeing no speakers.
One, if I may. I'm sorry,
Commissioner
Chairman.
Romano, you may.
Kitty cat's gone.
Oh, gee.
Brought it back to the woods and dropped it off. No, I'm just kidding. When I told him that, I said to him, we have somebody that will take it, he reneged. I guess he's getting too much comfort for it. I've been telling you people about it. I just thought I'd bring you up to date. He's keeping his kitty cat. That's all. I'm sorry. And one other thing, the calendars that I told you about looking at again, I'm full of bananas, and I'll admit it. Forget what I said yesterday about your calendars. Thank you, Chair. That's all I got.
Any other commissioners wish to speak other than the subject of the cat? Wait, are you on here?
No, I'm not.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
absolutely not on the list. Just thank you all to those that logged in and voted for me for the Macomb Black Excellence Award for next year. Really appreciate it. So that's all I wanted. Thanks a lot, guys. I won't know until February, but
We vote more than once.
I,
You got problems with
I think, yeah, I think you can, but
Well, for those that haven't, it's a very easy process to use, so take a look at it. With that, next item, I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss confidential memo dated November 13th, 2024.
Motion to go to closed session.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Gratz, supported by Commissioner Zenner. All in favor, please vote. Okay, next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
and support. All in favor, please vote.
Here we go.
Meeting's adjourned.